James Lynch here for OddsChecker US with one of the best coaches in the MMA game right now, Tyson Chartier, the head coach of Calvin Kattar and Rob Font. Tyson, how's it going, man? Getting you in your car today?
Yeah, doing good, man. I'm in between training sessions and good to chop it up with you a little bit. I feel like we've been at this for years, and this will be a fun one.
Yes, we're going to be talking about the Ben Askren Jake Paul boxing fight. I figured why not ask someone who's actually a coach and knows what they're talking about. First, in terms of the matchup itself, how surprised were you to see this fight come together? Because I think when people thought of someone crossing over to boxing, Ben Askren probably wasn't the first name you would think of.
Yeah, no, you definitely don't think of Ben Askren for his boxing, but I mean, Jake Paul, he doesn't have a ton of experience, so it kind of makes sense, and it's definitely, we're talking about it. So it was the right move by their team. They seemed to be really smart with the promotional side of things, and we're all talking about it. He obviously has a big following from his other career, and it's exciting, man. It's kind of got that like old Pride feel to it, but at the same time, this is like a combat athlete going against a guy who's trying to go climb the ranks in boxing.
And, we're both immersed in the MMA world. We know what Ben Askren is. He's a wrestler. He's not a boxer. In fact, his striking gets a lot of criticism from a lot of people, not just, outside of the MMA industry, but fighters themselves, being very critical of Ben. I think the fact that Jake is boxing someone like Ben speaks volumes of, he's probably not calling out someone like Calvin Kattar, for example, someone that you work with who has very good boxing, right? You could tell this was a bit strategic on Jake Paul's part in terms of, making the matchup.
Yeah, I mean, he's got it seems like he has a really smart team behind him, and I think they're being realistic and handling him in the right way. You don't want to jump in the deep water before you need to, and it's hard to go backwards once you do that. You're not going to go fight someone like a Calvin Kattar and then go fight someone like Ben Askren. So I think it's smart on his part. It's obviously got the promotional buzz to it. It's got a cool feel. We're all talking about it, and Ben Askren is definitely someone that can carry a fight too. He's funny. He's got this funky style. I love following him on Instagram. He's a good follow. Just the way he handles himself at the press conference and stuff like that. I think it just adds to the excitement of the fight.
We're not going to be able to answer every question here today in terms of, the matchup itself, because there's a lot of, things at play here. And you can see that even in the betting lines. I know the line is flipped. I believe right now Jake Paul is the favorite, but last week he wasn't. So we'll get into that in a second here. But let's start with Jake Paul first. Obviously, two impressive wins in the boxing cage, or in boxing ring, I should say. The last one over Nate Robinson, who's not a combat sports athlete. He's a former NBA player. I want to be clear about that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But have you been impressed with what Jake's done so far? Because I have. I think he's looked pretty good, just with the little amount of time he's been training boxing.
Yeah, obviously we're only seeing what they let us see, right? Mm-hmm. And but it seems like what they're letting us see is he's got world-class coaches, and then he's going out there and if you're going to say that you're a great boxer, you should be knocking out someone like Nate Robinson. So he's kind of walking the walk, but he's also talking the talk, but then he's walking the walk. So he's still untested in someone that we think is an actual good boxer and stuff like that. But this one, it interests me because now you have someone who's a fighter, you're not going against an NBA player who's crossing over to boxing. You are going against a legitimate fighter. Say all you want about Ben Askren's hands, but wrestling is probably one of the hardest sports mentally that there is in the world. And Ben Askren was one of the best there. He reached the top level in that, pretty close to the top level. And when it comes to MMA wrestling, he's one of the better guys that's ever come out of our sport. So for him to go against, Paul in this fight, it's going to be interesting to see if him go against another, an actual fighter, not just a boxer, but a guy who's going to fight you, I'm interested to see how Ben does that when he can only use his hands.
You brought up something about Ben's experience, not even in just MMA, where he was a Bellator champion and a champion or title holder, however you say it, over there. But he also, was an NCAA Division I champion as well. He's fought at the highest level. He's been in the Olympics. That's something that, Jake Paul hasn't done. Is that something a lot of people are overlooking? And does it even matter in this fight in terms of, the credentials of Ben Askren?
I think it's just from the mental side, everybody talks about how fighting is so mental, and it's, Ben really doesn't have anything to lose in this fight. He's going and he's getting paid. People aren't saying he has good boxing. He's going out there and he's trying to shut up the guy that, is talking a big game. And that guy's got a few fights under his belt. And, Ben, it's I really believe he doesn't have anything to lose. You see, he took that loss to Masvidal and he literally brushed it off. And now he's all right, cool. I got knocked out. Big deal. there'd be nothing different if he goes and loses to Jake Paul. I don't think he's going to care, But on the flip side is like Paul has a lot to lose, like he goes and loses in a boxing match to Ben Askren. That's like, there's some high pressure there. That's just going to be like, all right, maybe this isn't the sport for you. But like you talked about that experience is, man, wrestlers are the most mentally strong. And I think Ben can come in and push a pace, make the fight dirty, and he's not going to get overwhelmed and quit. You're not going to do that to Ben, but can Ben do that to Jake? Can he stay in his face, be there after he takes the hard shots, still be laughing and smiling, and then backing you into a corner just with like heavy pressure or hanging on you or whatever, being annoying? How does Jake Paul deal with that?
It's going to be interesting for sure. I got to get your perspective, though, on Ben Askren striking from what you've seen. What are your thoughts on it? I know you're not specifically a boxing coach, you're an all-around MMA coach, but you got two of the best boxers, in my opinion, in the UFC, in Rob Font and Calvin Kattar. So you know a thing or two about it is what I'm getting at here. How do you analyze Ben Askren striking from what you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly not super comfortable on his feet, and he's not like a crisp boxer by any means. And, most of the strikes that he does land in MMA are because of the threat of the takedown is there. So people are kind of lowering their hands, they're dropping their level, and then it might open up some stuff. So I think really it's like, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see what it looks like when he can only punch, when there's no threat of the takedown and there's no option for him to do a takedown. Does that make his hands better? When he knows he can only throw his hands, is he going to be more confident, and all right, well, this is my only weapon here, I'm going to use it? Because he has no problem using his weapons offensively and putting himself in the fire and going. Is now he going to take that same approach that he did as a wrestler, knowing that all I can do is punch and then just go? So I'm interested to see that. Like, I think when you break down the technical side of his boxing, I don't think anyone's claiming that he's like a tactician, but is he going to just throw hard, throw often, and bring pressure? And I think that's probably his path to victory. So I'm interested to see if he does that. But yeah, I don't think there's any, no one's going to claim that he's a technical boxer by any means, but I think he's also a smart guy, and he's been in a bunch of fights, and he knows how to take punches. And now that his only option is to give punches, it'll be interesting to see what he does with it.
How much do we factor in that Robbie Lawler fight? And the reason I bring that up is because Robbie landed the kitchen sink at Ben. Ben survived. Granted, he was able to revert back to his wrestling, but I think people are overlooking that too, because it's one thing to get hit by Robbie Lawler. It's another thing to get hit by Jake Paul. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you feel like that's something that people aren't taking into consideration?
And getting hit with boxing gloves.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
Bit of a difference there. So, yeah, I mean, I obviously he can take a punch. I was at the fight when he fought Lyman Good back in Bellator. This is probably like
great
10
fight.
years ago,
I remember
right?
that because Ben's face was all bruised up in that one.
I remember after the fight, he was, you saw how banged up his face was in the hotel after the fight. And, he was never really hurt in that fight. He was never rocked. And he just kept going. Nothing like sidetracked him. Nothing discouraged him. So, yeah, I mean, I really don't think Jake's going to be able to bring anything while wearing boxing gloves that's really going to like deter Ben Askren from coming forward. And, so it'll be interesting to see, I don't think he's going to be worried necessarily about like the power or anything like that, because there's nothing that he's bringing that he hasn't seen already in 4-ounce gloves.
And then sort of the other thing with this fight is the difference in height and reach and weight in this fight. Jake Paul's a bigger fighter. We saw at the stare down. Ben's fought at 185 and won championship, but obviously Jake is going to be the bigger fighter. He's got a bit of a height advantage, a bit of a reach advantage in this one. How much will that play into this fight, do you think?
So I'm interested to see that. Like, that is one of the factors that you even when you see them standing together, granted, Ben was wearing sandals. Jake does look significantly bigger, but I don't know, man. Like, I feel like Ben's the wrestler, so if they get in the clinch and he starts to hang on him a little bit and just be annoying, the first part of the fight, he starts to hang on him, get him a little bit tired. Does Jake get tired? I don't think you're going to see Ben getting tired. I think he's just going to come. He always looks tired, right? But like, he still goes for 5 rounds. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if maybe the size disadvantage where it's, could play into effect because maybe he has better cardio or he's just able to kind of muscle through the grinding part of the fight where he's, maybe Jake gets tired, maybe, I don't know, man. It's just such a weird
But that's what makes it interesting. I feel the same way. Like I don't know what's going to happen. Okay, this is pretty much how I see the fight going. I'm curious to get your thoughts. I think either Jake knocks him out early, which could happen. You never know. Maybe age, finally the chin goes and Ben Askren gets finished. I don't think Jake will win a decision. He might, but again, maybe Askren's too tough, doesn't get finished. I think if Ben wins, it's pretty much, decision or maybe a late stoppage, but I would lean more, decision with maybe Jake getting tired because Ben's fought in those, later rounds before in his career. What are you seeing in terms of how this fight's going to play out on April 17th?
Yeah, so I do think like maybe Jake gets, clips him early or something like that, and then the fight's over. Or if Ben's able to kind of just come forward with that pressure and just kind of cover up, pressure forward, back him up, and then just chip away little pot shots, stuff like that, and just try to be annoying and hang on him and discourage him and distract him and then just keep being there, I think he can start to chip away at Jake's confidence. Because the longer this fight goes, for lack of better terms, the more embarrassing it is for Jake. You're calling out guys like Conor McGregor or whoever else and saying all this stuff like you want to fight these best guys in the world. Like you got to walk through someone like Ben Askren, So and I think he knows that. So the longer the fight goes, it's almost like the more embarrassed he is of all the shit he talked and the claims he made and stuff like that. So, I think that's going to weigh heavy on him, and then maybe he takes more risks, and then Ben's there. Ben's there to hit him back. Ben's there to hang on him. Ben's there to just be annoying and win rounds with, when nothing happens. If he's just constantly pushing him against the fence, kind of hugging him like this, and then just chipping away at the body, then getting out and then doing it again, and Jake feels like he can never kind of get into a rhythm, and he feels smothered, and he gets frustrated. Next thing you know, the round ended, and, Ben landed 30 shots, and he landed 4, I think Ben can be a little bit annoying, be like a gnat, just kind of be like an imp in his face the whole time and just frustrate him. And then the longer it goes, I think the more frustrated Jake's going to get. And that's when usually good things happen for the person that has more technical striking. Sorry, bad things happen for the person that has the more technical striking because they're going to take a risk, which is going to open up something for the other guy to land.
Very well said, Coach. Before we get out of here, what's next for you? What's going on with your team and any of the things you got coming up in the next little bit? We got Rob's fight coming up just around the corner against Cody Garbrandt. What else is on the horizon for you, Coach?
Yeah, so we got on the coaching side, we're full blown camp mode for Rob. We got 4 more weeks of training, then we'll head out to Vegas. I'm just trying to tighten that up. Calvin's crushing the PTs, getting back in the gym, doing non-contact training. So we're looking at the fall for him. It's good to have his energy back in the gym and just the banter and all that stuff. And, and then on the management side, we got John Duma fighting for Bellator tonight because we're filming this on Friday. So he fights tonight, tomorrow morning, at noon. William Knight fighting Dao Jung in Vegas. And then unfortunately the Parker Porter fight's off. But then, we get the end of the month. Nate Andrews making his Bellator debut May 21st. And next week, Carlos Candelario finally making his return.
Awesome.
After winning on the Contender Series. So he's back after a 3-year layoff. So yeah, we get a lot of big things coming. It's a good time to be in New England MMA. It's a good time to be in the cartel, and it's a good time to be a combat sports fan with all these cool things that are going on.
Awesome. I'll give you the last word. Anything you want to plug at the end here?
No, man, I appreciate you bringing me on. I know I'm not a boxing analyst by any means, but this fight's fun, and I think it's, I don't usually watch boxing, but I'm going to watch this one, So I think it's exciting, and I appreciate you guys covering stuff like this and have me on. Let me chop it up with you.